I'm so technologically forward that I don't own a watch, so I'm going to put this clock here to make sure that I don't go over on my time. Tribeca Film Institute, we launched a new program called the Reframe Project, and we say that it's responsible for making our visual heritage accessible to all, because we're very much focused on the fact that technology is very slow, is what we actually think, but there's a lot of people who are getting left behind, and especially a lot of filmmakers. We deal with a lot of filmmakers and distributors that literally are still asking us whether or not they should think about going to DVD. They're still convinced that they're selling some of their VHS copies and people are running their prints. And back in the 1980s, when everyone was imagining we'd be much further along than we are now, there was a theorist named Gregory Ulmer who said that what we're moving towards is called electracy. And the idea was we've had an oral culture, we were orality, we moved to literacy, literate culture and reading, and we're now moving to where everything is digitally intermediated, and he terms that electracy. And this was supposed to happen by like 1990, and we haven't gotten there yet. But what that means is, if that's true, is that as we become a more visual, digitally intermediated culture, all this stuff that's stuck on the shelf in analog formats, films, videotapes stuck on the shelf, are disappearing from our cultural heritage completely. And the costs for most people who are trying to transform this media are pretty astronomical, and they can't afford it. So we decided to dream up this project to try to help get this disappearing media off the shelf. There's a lot of archival and preservation issues, there's expiring rights issues, and so this stuff is stuck there. And then even for that content which a lot of the kind of old world distributors are trying to move to online, they're doing it in very less than ideal ways. It's very hard for people who are trying to find a specific set of content. Say you want to teach something in a classroom about human rights, and they have to go oftentimes to a distributor that literally has a print catalog that they'll ship you, and then you fax back a form that lets them ship you the film. So it's very hard for people to find this. And then as more and more stuff is coming online, there's a sea of films, and so for researchers and people trying to kind of cut through the crap to find what they want, it's very hard to find. The content's widely dispersed, and I actually just real quickly want to clarify, I think film should be everywhere on every platform. I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but there's a large sector of the population that is having trouble finding a lot of this information, we think. So these are some of the problems that we were finding. So we developed this project called Reframe, and the idea of the project is that it can be a field-wide solution, something that addresses all of these issues. And our hope is to digitize all these films and make them available, but we feel like a lot of these films aren't going to just rise to the top. They're still very niche films. So we wanted to build a platform that can help people who are looking for specific specialized niche content find that content. We're not becoming a distributor. We're not competing with any distributors. We're simply an aggregator of content and a service to the field. Everything we're doing is on a non-exclusive basis. And our first partnership is with Amazon, which is controversial to some people who see them as Satan. But we actually feel, like I said a minute ago, that content should be on every platform possible. And with 85 million customers and growing, we feel like that's a place that film should be accessible as well. And it happened that their corporate greed coincides with our mission. Their corporate greed is they want to have everything under the sun for sale on Amazon, and they're confident that they'll be able to sell it to you through their system. And our mission is to get all this stuff off the shelf. So it coincided, and they're saving us millions of dollars every year in digitization and delivery costs. But I'll be bringing this up to the rest of the speech as well. They're just our first partner. We're not exclusive to them either, so we're making partnerships with multiple other platforms to make this content available. And so what we're doing is, because we're aggregating thousands of films, we're going out there and offering filmmakers this help with digitizing their films to make them accessible. We can negotiate with these platforms and make a much better deal for the filmmakers and the distributors and everyone working with us, archives, et cetera, than if they went directly, because we're negotiating on behalf of 10,000 films instead of on behalf of 100 films. And we pass that right back to the people we're working with. So we're working with their CreateSpace division, which digitizes stuff and makes DVDs on demand. And we're working with Amazon Video on Demand, which is digital download to own, digital download to rent, and they've just added streaming. You can also, if you have a TiVo, you can get all their content directly to your TiVo. And we're going out to archives and filmmakers and offering to digitize their video content completely for free, We've worked with a very good film lab in the US, and we're starting to identify others around the world, to do film at a very low cost, talking about pennies per foot instead of the typical costs. And then we're making these things available in multiple formats. And we're keeping a digital copy that is continually, they call it the future-proof archive. The idea is that as every new generation of technology comes around, they upgrade that media content to that so it's not left behind on like a floppy disk. We negotiated a fair split for the rights holder, and all of it's on our website. It's completely transparent. Essentially, Tribeca is keeping about 5%, and our cut's coming out of Amazon's cut instead of the filmmaker's cut. We set up variable and tiered pricing, so for those people who are still using a model of charging more to educational and less to consumers, they can still do that through this. The filmmaker or the rights holder sets their prices and licensing terms, and we've even done some things that are pretty unprecedented, like we've gotten Amazon to agree that if they discount your title, they actually pay based on the cost that you set it at, which is not usually the case. And again, everything we do is non-exclusive. This is the Reframe website that we launched. And I think, as we'll hear from multiple other platforms today, there's many platforms out there, and we think people should be on multiple platforms, and people are going to find your film just by Googling it and coming to your own website. But the point of this platform is that we really feel that people are having a hard time finding this content, so we're trying to help them to get to this specialized niche content. So Reframe is a transactional community site devoted to academic and independent and experimental film and media. And the purpose is to use some familiar web techniques, Web 2.0 as people like to call them, to broaden access to and increase awareness of these films. And it's a single aggregation point to find what's usually typically very dispersed media. And I'm going to just walk through the site. I'll try to go as quickly as possible and keep us on schedule here. But you see right off the bat, we're pushing certain things. You can see that, you know, the film's front and center. We talk about who the distributor is. You can see video content. We show, hopefully not just trailers. We usually try to get filmmakers to put up at least 2 or 3 minutes of their film for free so people can actually sample the content beyond a trailer. People can play that right there. And they can, from the very beginning of the home, we bring this content to the surface, playing the trailers in a flash player. Users can instantly click through to the film's content page to purchase or get more info, but the primary content is exposed immediately in its true form, which is video. Users can then aggregate content themselves by curating lists of content, and these links are featured throughout the site in the sidebar. And this shared knowledge acts as a means of filtering or percolating content to the surface. All of these will also be made as widgets, which can be ported to Facebook and other platforms so that they can go viral. Users can also get to content through more straightforward goal-based means, category-based navigation by subject or genre, and other conventional ways that they can drill in and find the content they want. For example, you can search a term on the upper right and search against it and get results broken down, starting with films, because we think that's probably what you're looking for, but then we can also say there's also curated lists that have been curated under this. Here's all the subjects that contain this. Here's a filmmaker whose name is very similar, Edgar, it's Edgar Ulmer. You might be looking for his films. So you can find what you're looking for. Then we are also making category-based browse, which lets people find films through a conventional hierarchy, which a lot of academic audiences, that's what they're used to using. And we still think that a lot of this niche content is going to be used by professors, scholars, people using it as education, and they're used to looking for films in this way. So if you do that conventional search, we take you through a more conventional academic hierarchy to find this. And a fully exposed hierarchy would be pretty daunting, and we have thousands and thousands of categories that these films can be tagged against. So we start you with a very focused area. But then you can obviously drill down and find all the films and subcategories underneath each of those areas. Sorry, I'm reading off notes because I've changed my slide order. I don't remember what comes next. So you can go from higher to lower levels, finding exactly what you want. You can also search within each individual subject level. So you may know that you're looking for some kind of film about economic systems, but you're looking specifically for a documentary, probably not a horror film, but you can drill down and use this to find more content. And then you get to a film page, and here's one for a Hans Richter film. And on the film content page, the users can view the trailer if there's video. Some of the filmmakers we're getting content from, they haven't yet given us the video to play. So when you go to the site, sometimes they don't have a trailer, they haven't put any of the content up, but we're slowly helping them make clip reels of their films so people can sample them and find them. They can learn more information about the film, all kinds of things. But it's not just a transactional site. What we're trying to build is a transactional community. We want to get users to the primary content, but we also want to draw them into the category and let them associate themselves with the category. We're developing extensive UGC components for Reframe, where users can develop a presence on the site by interacting with and through the content. They define their presence on the site and just thus display their knowledge and interests via additions they can add to the primary content of films. And we want this user-generated contributions to become a part of the fabric of the site along with the formal top-down structure and content. So we really believe it's got to be a mix of the taxonomy and folksonomy, the top-down and the bottom-up, to help people find this content. And ultimately help people to push to find these films, use them, and buy them. So for an example, a user here can rank the films. They can add the films to a list. They can add all kinds of reviews, and all of this content gets below the fold, added to the film, and it's extra metadata that helps people find these films, because as more people are adding tags, et cetera, it helps percolate the content, draw it to the surface, and indicate the quality of the film. Here's the user tags. People can also add reviews of the film, and you can see who added the review and see whether or not you trust their opinion by clicking on their name, looking at their profile. Here's an example of how people can add to a curated list that they make. Because our idea is that as people are looking for content online, they're looking for a trusted source. They're looking for someone who is an expert or a friend who can tell them how to find these films, so we make it very easy for people to do that. Here's an example of the user profile page. And we know that not everyone's going to leave Facebook and come to this site, but the idea is that people who want to interact with this content, and like a professor wants to share it with their students, et cetera, might create their own profile and have people interact with their content. Here's all the things that this person has done. He's curated these different lists. He's tagged all these different films. You can click on those tags, find all the films associated with that. And the hope is that this will lead people to find more of these films. I'm going to skip through some of these a little bit quicker because you can kind of get the sense of what people can do on the site very easily from looking at it. So here's where we've added in a bunch of blogging to the site as well. And the blog is one means of allowing users to contribute content, but it also reaches outside the official boundaries of the site, because users can obviously take it off through RSS feeds to other places. The chances of someone coming to Reframe are greatly increased by providing interesting Reframe-associated content and a means of getting that content in front of a lot of people. So individual posts can be commented upon. And the blog has a presence on the transactional site. It's from the very first page, you can see we're incorporating the blog as well. And we have different bloggers who are film professors, curators, film lovers, who are blogging about film on the site and pushing people to find some of this niche content that they wouldn't otherwise find. And I want to talk a little bit about the future of Reframe. I mean, this is just very basic stuff. It's all, typical Web 2.0 stuff just put into one place. And we started this project with the idea that we would eventually be having, tags down to the clip level of every single film, and people can find the scene they want of each film. And then filmmakers could come and license that content and use it in their own film and pay based on how many times their film was watched. But it didn't seem like the field was ready for that next 5 years step that we're hoping to get to next. So we started with a much more transactional site, just trying to get these films accessible and usable. We're adding in, as I said, tons of widgets that can take things more viral. iPhone applications. We are going to be building the clip libraries, and adding the tagging at that level is just, we're going to take more time because it didn't seem like people were ready for it yet. We're adding a lot more robust social networking tools and more user-generated comment, but the ultimate idea is just to try to use as many tools as possible to help drive people to very niche content that would be very hard to find otherwise. And I can, the most important thing I should also mention is, unlike Amazon, where all of this data is stored in a big corporate database that you never have access to, what we're also building is that all the data we're collecting, we're sharing with the filmmakers and distributors and archives that are working with us, down to things like, this is a search term that led someone to find your film. So that might be a term that you want to use in your Google ads, for example. The email addresses of the people who are buying the films, as long as the user has said they're fine with sharing their information as a consumer, because we want to let consumers opt out of that, then as long as they're fine with that, we'll push that on to the filmmaker and they can use that information as well. So that's a quick summary of the Reframe project.